we're back with another episode of Let Me Be Frank with myself, Simon Houston, Frank McAvennie, and we are quite literally in safe hands today because we have Packie Bonner with us.
Packie, thanks for coming in, sir.
Pleasure. Talk football, Macca, and we'll talk about the good old days, I'm sure.
I know,
Did you guys have any good old days?
Yeah, just a few.
I tried to stay away from Frank.
Aye.
We were on the pitch. Yeah. He was up at one end, I was on the end, and I tried to maintain that off the pitch.
I know.
Didn't happen.
It would have been easy.
It's a good relationship. But you used to tell me, go away, go do your job, go to the park. Don't do that now.
Remember we played against Motherwell. We had a great team. Played against Motherwell. And this was the beauty about this guy. Corner kick against. And I'm in train organising. He comes back and starts shouting at me, you get your act together. I must have been having a bad game. Imagine a striker coming back to tell a defender what to do. So he had the leadership qualities.
We all had everyone is.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because I remember talking to Willie Hockey about that season, right? And about his particular fondness for you as a person. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'll tell you what sums up Frank McAvennie. It was a game at Pittodrie. Celtic won 1-0. I think it was after the New Year. And he says, 1 minute, Frank was clearing one off the goal line. I don't know what you'd done at a particular point for that to happen.
He's a very special role as a defender.
And then,
post.
But the next minute, he's up the other end scoring. And he said, that was it. You know, and I thought, so you mentioning that's quite a, you know.
Well, without blowing his head, because, you know, I know he loves all this, building them up.
Enjoy yourself,
I've always described Frank as a combination of all the great strikers that I played. What he could run, he could close down, he could head the ball, he was quick enough, he scored unbelievable goals, and he did his defensive. He did all of those things, held the ball up, ran the channel, all the things that you want from a striker. And you know, Charlie was brilliant. You know, all the guys you got through were brilliant. He had a combination of them all, and that's what made him. How's your head now? Is it okay?
It's not me, but keep going.
Oh, fantastic. But on the subject of Celtic strikers then, so Kyogo's away.
Yes.
And Jota's back. So if we just look at that period in isolation, I forget who else might come in and so on, just that wee kind of few days, have Celtic come out of that better than they were before?
No. Jota's a wonderful talent. I mean, a wonderful player. If we get him back to what he was, brilliant. But they're going to miss Kyogo, and there's no doubt about that, because his runs, as we're talking about, you're talking about me. His runs have been...
Yeah. His movement, Macca.
I know.
He had when he came in first, I think for all of the people that we've watched coming to Scotland, he was sensational in his movement. He had that, he could almost make his triple movement. He would come to the ball, it wouldn't be on, he would check away, he would come again, or he would go away, he would come, and then he would go. He had all that movement. There was a little period after Ange left that I thought that disappeared a little bit. Now, whether that was a period where maybe he asked away and he was unsure of himself, and because of his relationship with Ange and so on, and he didn't know how Brendan was going to set the team up, was it going to suit him and all that kind of stuff. And let's think about when Brendan came in first. We all describe Brendan's way of playing as maybe being a little bit more passing and move the ball. Possession. And that, because Ange was always in the front foot. And it was brilliant for up here. Now he's struggling down it. He hasn't maybe got the players that switched off.
Europe,
of course. But then when Brendan sort of almost changed his way of doing it initially to a bit more on the front foot, more penetrating passes, more. I think then Kyogo came back to what he was brilliant at. And the other thing that suits Kyogo, I believe, for Celtic was, and this is why I question why Rennes, they're struggling. He loves playing, or when Celtic play in the opposition half, and he's able to make the runs and that's when it becomes really dangerous. When the ball's further back, he struggles a bit. And that's probably because he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, not holding it up and so on and so forth. And I understand that. The other thing I think is really a business deal, because you have Jota that's at Rennes. He goes to Rennes, so there's no movement of money. No. Maybe they wanted Jota out for whatever reason, and that's the question.
It's a great deal for Celtic,
but
I think Celtic's got to bring in a striker.
Yeah. Of course they do.
Because listen, Adam Adair is going to be a hell of a talent for us, but he's not the finished article yet.
No, he's a different player. He's a completely different player.
And Celtic need that pace.
of course,
I think.
I think he'd
I
probably
like
play.
that. Sometimes
like him.
he does got a good record of coming on, changing games
I'm
and
not
getting.
talking about that, Simon. I'm talking about we need that movement.
Aye.
For Celtic need that movement. For the players like McGregor, Hatate, they need to see somebody. And that pass from Hatate to win the game 1-0 last week was an incredible pass.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what he's got to do week in, week out.
Well,
if he's going to be a
I
number one
watched
striker.
Adam play down at Kilmarnock last year, I think it was, and I thought it was as good. It was very much like this man, as I described earlier. The way that he played, he held the ball up, but he ran the channel.
Yes,
his movement was brilliant. He hit the near post when the ball was wide. All the things that you want from a striker. He's good enough in the air. But he hasn't done that consistently enough. Now, there's reasons for that. He hasn't played enough.
Yes.
And maybe his fitness levels got up. And also he's young. So he needs to then think about that. I would take that video of that game and say, that's what you have to do consistently, week in, week out, if you can, to play in a Celtic team. Because you have to do it consistently. You can't do it one and hope there's potential. You've got to do it. And that's what Kyogo probably brought. He scored goals and so on and so forth. Maida probably will maybe also play through the middle if they don't get a striker.
I think he'll play through. If Jota plays, he'll play through the middle until...
Aye, and that'll be the combination.
I think we'll bring in another striker because, listen, Adia's going to be there for a long time and he's going to be our number one.
The only other thing,
the
only other issue, two other issues I have, and I've spoken about it already, so this is new. One would be, is Jota the same player that left?
Of course, but that's what I say.
He's gone to Saudi, he's gone back to Rennes. Rennes want him out. Why? But his talent, has he got the mental attitude? Now he'll come home and he'll love it and the fans will love him, but he has to then, and is he up to a level? And the second thing is, with Kyogo going out, what effect has that got on Maeda and Hatate? Because I'm sure, like any of us, we have little groups that we hang around together, your mates, the same language and all that. Will that then upset them or unsettle them a little bit?
I think, no, really, because they two are in the national team. Kyogo had to move because the guy said he's not scoring goals, but it's not a big enough league. No. And but the thing is, with Jota going to Rennes, they're undefensive. He's not that kind of player. I mean, he'll do his bit. Yeah. He's on the front foot, as you say, with Celtic.
Also, I think
we'll bring the best out of him.
He's obviously a character, Jota. Just you know how he goes about his business. You know, he loves the adulation, completely loves it. I think, and he'll think back to what it was like when he 2 or 3 years ago. He was absolutely adored, and I think that might spark him on.
And what he has, he can go on the outside, he can go on the inside, he can score goals, he can take the ball 30, 40 yards up the pitch. Maybe the defensive side is a little bit worrying that he's maybe that.
Listen, before we go
That's on serious stuff.
I know, right? We've got all this season stuff out the way. We have like a buffet of stories to get through, right? Before we do that, just a reminder again, we are delighted with the reaction we've got from everybody.
Yeah, numbers are great.
Numbers are great. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X. Is that what Elon calls it? The YouTube as well, but free to subscribe, doesn't cost you anything, so just hit the button which is on your screen right now. So Pat Bonner played 646 times for Celtic.
Wow.
Goalkeeper with most appearances in the club's history, 80 international caps. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it all started with Sean Fallon scouting you. And then
a young man. I was playing with Cage Rovers, my local club over in Donegal, as a probably 16, 17-year-old, and I was in the Irish youth team. And Sean came over to watch us play in a game, and Sean, being Sean, total professional, he meets me at the game and he says, "Would you like to come over to Celtic on trial?" And I says, "Sean," and I was over back to Leicester City for a while. No. Didn't happen. And but I almost didn't even answer him. You know, that kind of way. And then he said, "Well, I'll contact the club." He didn't sort of he went around it. No, he went around it the right way.
Proper
this
manner.
is the way that Celtic operate. And then suddenly I was over in 1979. I came over here, and it was actually the weather was unbelievable. It was everything was frosted, the snow everywhere. We did a bit of training, but not much, and there was no games on. But there was one game, the first team I ever played with in Scotland, junior game, Coltness United against East Kilbride Thistle. And I played for Coltness United
as a kind of trial. Then was it? Or
almost as a
trialist.
Yeah, as a trialist, as And I went out and played against his Kilbride Thistle for Coltness. Now, the Coltness United now, I think they're an amalgamation of two clubs out there that are gone. But you know the funny thing, I was out in Motherwell recently doing a game, and this man came up to me before the game and he's chatting to me, he says, I just want to say to you, I was the goalkeeper with Coltness United and I had to give up the game that they'd allow you to play.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. And that was the first game. And I think it was Dave McParland actually that was here at the club. And Frank came out to watch me play. I went back home. I was still at school doing my leaving cert, which is equivalent to hires over here. And then I got the phone call around Easter to go to Ruby in France. And the funny thing about that was, as an under-18 tournament on. So I go with Charlie Nicholas and go with John Weir and I go with all of these lads. There was, and here's Packie Bonner from going. I had to get my hair cut before I went. Frank says, get your hair cut. So away I went anyway and went out. Didn't have a great game, but the first game we were playing against the local team, and again Celtic did everything right. The socks up, the shorts tucked in, we penning for the opposition, and you ran out up at the corner of the pitch. The two teams came out together and fanfare and music and all that. Big occasion for the local club. And then just as we lined up, I give my pendant to the other goalkeeper, and I went down and I had a wee bag with my gloves in it. Rosary beads, different things I put in the bag, and a ball, and I ran down to the other end of the pitch, and I bounced the ball 3 or 4 times as I was running down, and I had this wee habit of touching the crossbar, and then I turned round. The two teams were still standing at the top of the pitch, listening to the national anthems. Oh, I got slaughtered from the boys. The whole way to that. And my excuse was, listen, I'm Irish. I don't recognise our national anthem.
Exactly that. I wonder what national anthem they played, but we'll go down that rabbit.
So anyway, I signed. Then in May, I went back home and thought, this is over. I had a bad game in the first game, let it ball. And then I went back home, and then suddenly, I get the club comes and Jock Stein's coming over to sign you. Now, Mackie, you can imagine. Mourinho.
Yeah.
And Jock Stein then was leaving 2 weeks later. Now, I might have got him the sack, I don't know. But he was leaving a couple of weeks later. So they've obviously told him that he was gone. But he came over.
Made you his last signing.
Made me my last signing. He came over to Donegal. He arrived into the Mount Errigal is now, I think, the Ballerine Hotel at that time, or the other way around. And here I'm out with my mum and dad and a few of the members of the club and that. And then walks Jock into the room. I was like this. He came over to sign me. Unbelievable. And I signed, then started in July, and he had left, and Big Billy had taken over with John Clark. So
you get
but it was amazing.
The managers, some managers see the way you talk. He's got an aura.
Absolutely.
But Billy had it for me. I mean, Billy
was tremendous. What a wonderful thing for you, for your life story as well.
Yeah, but to do that for me, to come over and sign me, he could have easily said, well, that's me, I'm gone. Of
course, maybe he knew he was leaving and was thinking, I'm going to have one last hoolie and head over Ireland.
But he might have been over in Balmafay, and Fran Fields was the chairman of Finn Harps, and he came in with him. And the funny thing was, Fran Fields, obviously I was connected with Cesar over there, I had no real connection with Finn Harps. A couple of years later, then I'm in the team with Big Billy, and Big Billy comes in and says, we need to go over to play Finn Harps for when Packie signed. It was agreed.
You did.
Big Fran Fields had done the deal. In case you got nothing, Fran Fields got a huge game.
Of course, Jock was saying, I won't be there, but yes, I didn't bother. Okay, go for it. That's fantastic.
So that's the way football operated.
Absolutely. And Sean Fallon, again, a lot of younger people watching the podcast or listening to the podcast won't know a lot about Sean, but what a character.
I love Sean. Listen, his history of signing players was unbelievable. Kenny, Danny, he was involved with all of those great players. But when I sort of was on trial, he was the chief scout. Now, obviously, he was the assistant manager with Jock before that, but then he had sort of kind of moved down to be the guy who was the chief scout as such. And I don't know what the role of chief scout was then. It's not about technology and the AI and data and all that. It was about going out to see people. And Jock or Sean had a great way, but Sean had a brilliant character with him. He's a lovely, lovely man.
Well, a couple of teams.
Oh no, he was brilliant, and he lived down in Minnock Road, and I lived, when I came over first, with an aunt up in Sims Hill. So we were very close. We went to the same chapel. We went to Christ the King Chapel, and I would meet Sean there after he left the club, and he always shook your hand, Mackie. Give me your hand. Give me your hand. I was like, how are you, son? And he had this strong Irish handshake, and it was you almost felt that he was like a dad to you, you know what I mean, and so on and so forth. How's your mum doing? How are they all? And he had that way of making a connection with you. And he used to invite me down to the house for dinner, and I would go down, but he would be out watching games on, and he would arrive in about 10, but I would have been there since 7 o'clock, and he had about 3 or 4 daughters, and young Sean was only a baby at the time, and I would sit down, and he had this table, and I would get caught in the middle here, and I couldn't get out. And then I had to wait until Sean would come, and he would arrive in then from the games, and Myra, lovely family, and she would make a big steak for him. And he would be eating and say, Myra, that steak's a bit tough. That steak's a bit, he's out all day working, But he was lovely man.
Lad.
You know, there was a documentary done on Sean, and I know the Irish guys who would be watching this probably have seen it, and it was Tommy Gorman, who died recently. Tommy was a lovely man from Sligo, and Sean was from Sligo. Sean's father was the Lord Mayor of Sligo, and he loved going over to Sligo on his holidays, and and he did this documentary, I think it went out nationwide, and Sean was about 90, in his 90s at the time, and they go into the house in Minnock Road. All the kids came in, all the grandchildren came in. There's so many grandchildren with all the daughters. And then they'd interviewed myself and a few others and so on. And the guy asked him, Sean, what advice would you give to young lads now? And Sean sort of waited for a moment, and with that broad Sligo Scottish accent, I would say this to them: see if you like somebody, do as much as you can for them. And if you don't like them, don't engage. And then he looked up the sky and said, I hope you're listening to me up there.
Absolutely.
3 days later, he was dead. He died 3 days later.
Oh my God!
But he was, and that was typical Sean. Typical Sean.
What a quote to leave us with.
It was a great quote.
I know, innit?
So you arrived over in Glasgow, what, you 18, 19? When
19, I came over in trial in 77, joined in 1978, and then was there right through to
How quick were you
1997.
in the first team?
I got in, funny, Roy Baines and Peter Latch were 2 goalkeepers, and I was in then as a young kid for about a couple of months. And I was lucky because Billy had taken over with John Clark, and I think Billy then looked at everybody afresh. And almost put us all in the same bracket without saying, well, he's a young guy. And then he sold Roy Baines to Morton. Roy's a great lad. And then it was just me and Peter. You know, there was no youth teams at the time. It was the reserves in the first team. So I was a reserve goalkeeper. And then Peter was kind of going through maybe a sticky patch, as we all do as goalkeepers. And so it was the following St. Patrick's Day I made my debut, 1979. So I came over in 78 in May and made my debut in 79, which is incredible, coming out of Donegal, coming out of KG Rovers. And suddenly now, here I am making my debut for Celtic.
It was St. Patrick's Day as well.
And with St. Patrick's Day, and you know the funny thing there was a kind of a communications strike on at the time. There was no letters, there was no phones, there was nothing. We didn't have a phone in the house anyway at home. But my parents, nobody knew in Ireland that I was making my debut until they seen it. Then they obviously got the Irish Post or the Sunday Post over there and the Sunday Mail. This big Donegal Irish connection, and that's kind of how they knew. And I had made my debut. I played then the following week against Motherwell. I was against Motherwell. We won the game 2-1. Bobby Lennox scored 2. And then I played again against Motherwell in a postponed game out at Fair Park. And I didn't have a good game. I think we ended up 1-4-3. And then I was out of the team. But I was young. I was I was about 12 stone. I was like and I went out of the team then for about maybe 10 months. And then Danny McGrain's testimonial on the day before Peter broke a bone in his hand. Up training. Luck. You need the luck. It's a lucky break. Yeah. And I was put into the team, and then I got a run, and that was me in for the next probably 12, 13 years or whatever. Well, absolutely.
You've seen a lot over the years.
I played against him quite a few times with St. Mirren. I was at St. Mirren.
The one that I remember, with Mackie was when we won the league, 1981.
I think that was on a Monday, I think, was it? It was against St Mirren anyway.
It was against St Mirren, and
Josh McCluskey
Rangers
scored
and
too.
Aberdeen were playing.
That's right.
And I think Aberdeen had won the game 4-0 away at Pittodrie, against Rangers in Pittodrie.
I think we were 4-0 up at half time.
4-0 up at half time, and we came in and was 0-0 at half time. But he was up front. Ginger hair. I don't know what colour's your hair now, Roy?
Still ginger. I said to Roy, I said to Roy, you better go up to Park and score. I says, they're winning. And he says, the gaffer when they tell us the score. He says, the gaffer when they tell. I says, they're winning the league. And he says, I can't leave me, McDougall. He said, I can't leave you. I said, we've no chance of scoring.
But he was trying to, I had 3 saves in the first half. He was trying to.
There's a great bit of footage of you saving I get from Frank in that very game, and it says curly.
That's right. He was like that. You were like that.
That's one best of match.
I can sure the comment whether it's Jeremy Nee or whatever. It's McAvennie again.
I know. I was trying.
And a couple of saves, and then Tommy Adams scored. I think the first one was a header, and we won the end up winning.
I'm sure McCluskey got 2. I mean, I think Josh McCluskey did. Because we played some a week or 2 earlier. It was nothing each at Park.
Was it? Was it? Maybe so. Yeah.
I remember Mark Fulton was in the Centenary team.
We were very. And we were a good team. We were a good team.
Good team. You had all of that. Big Dougie Sumler was up front of that time at the very start.
Frank McDougall was.
Great.
Jimmy
all
Bone.
of that. Jimmy Bone. I met Jimmy last week.
Did you?
He was coming back from holiday and he was brilliant.
He's a good lad.
You've seen a lot of changes, the pair of you actually, and about and I'd like to talk about modern day footballers compared to back in your heyday, and as far as visiting outposts and supporters clubs and so on. So a friend of mine and a friend of the podcast, Brendan Turley, messaged me this morning to say, ask Packie if he remembers presenting trophies for, I think it was our man Packie Bonner Celtic Supporters Club.
I was Georgie Carson. Lovely man. He worked in the cathedral. And so on, and the Archbishop of Ireland was there, and that, and he used to invite us over every so often. He ran a wee boys club, and he was brilliant for the kids. A lot of them kids now are old. Obviously, they're old, but they remember. He was very important for them in that area because he gave them an outlet, he gave them something to do, and so on. And Georgie was a great man. He invited myself. George McCluskey also came over, so we would go over, present the trophies, and have a nice. And I built up a good relationship with him. He used to always send me St. Patrick's Day, the what do you call it, the shamrocks. They would arrive, and they were all the muck. Everything was on the mud, and everything was on. Brilliant. And
you'll have gone to a lot of supporters clubs over the years.
I used to go a lot. The final year, the first time I was there, I don't know. But when I arrived, all we did was go to pick up trophies for Paul McStay when he played a year. He couldn't go to them all, so you're going there. But the gaffer, I didn't mind that. The gaffer used to say, brilliant. You're going there, and we're going, I'm going out with the missus. You can go after.
Is that
you're going there for at least an hour.
Is it something that's missing, do you think?
I think so.
Do you know what it did? It made a connection with the fans. You went there, and even if you're going through a rough time, you say, he's not a bad. You'd be up in the he was out with us last week, and great, and he's a good lad, and give him a chance and all that. That connection is gone now. But we went all over. We went everywhere. Ireland, Scotland, up to the islands. And unbelievable. And they were great nights. My wife used to go, and she was always sat beside the parish priest at the dinner.
We were talking. A couple of weeks ago, but Anton Rogie, we were talking about Granty and another one. He was mad, wasn't he? Rogie's brilliant. He's one of his our pal. But we went to this night, and there was 4 of us. I think it was 4 of us. And they're all singing the songs and that. And we were going, big weight. He says, Rogie will sing. And Rogie, no problem. He started singing My Way. And everyone's going, everyone thought he was taking the piss. It wasn't. He was built out. He was all proud.
Fantastic.
But wonderful guy. It was a great period. I think back to the 80s, And really, I got into the team in 81, and we were successful. You had Aberdeen and Dundee United, who were really good teams, very competitive. But there was so much fun within the team. We'd signed Frank McAvennie, we'd signed Murdo, Roy was still, Tommy, Vic Davison was a funny guy in the dressing room. He ended up going to America, but Vic was so funny in the dressing room. And when you're winning, and you have that group of people, what an enjoyment it was during the 80s. And then, of course, it led into the Centenary year, and then it was a changeover. Manager changed, Billy left, Davy came in, Billy came back, but all of that changed. But it was very much, and you got to know everybody everybody, and you had Jim Kennedy, who was doing the tickets. You had the groundsman. You had Irene in behind and all that.
Angie doing it.
Absolutely. Irene McDonald, right? Irene worked behind in the office. She ran everything. She was the one, and she used to go into town to pick up the wages. Yeah. In Dermot White's office. That's where the wages were made up. You can imagine her doing that now. And it was all cash at that time with your obviously paid the tax.
Literally getting an envelope.
But you were getting an envelope, a wax envelope, and you would get it. And if you won a few games, it was, that's you'd be waiting. It was great, but you still had to pay off your overdraft at the end of the year, or end of the month. But Irene would come out on the bus. She would go in on the bus and come out on the bus. And Old Flax was he ran a paper stall in the town, when selling the Times and all that, and he was into a bit of the bookies and all that, and he would give tips. And Neely and Jock and all that would get tips from him, and they built up a great relationship with him. But he was the bodyguard. He would come out in the bus with Irene, and Irene, we'd be all waiting for our wages, say on Tuesday, and we'd be waiting. And we'd have been up in Joe's kitchen, came down waiting, and you'd be looking at the bus coming out the London Road, and you'd be saying, "There is she down?" No, she's not. And then she would come off the bus and she would walk at the bottom of London Road up to Car Park, up the road with Flax. But we had played St. Mirren. We'd played St. Mirren the week before down. And Torferson, remember the big striker that played from Iceland, played with St. Mirren. They ended up getting a penalty. And I happened to go the right way and stuck up my hand, and I hit my hand, went over the crossbar.
That's called a save.
That was a save, but it was one of them lucky there. You go the right way, you get a touch on the ball, and you're here. But anyway, Tuesday comes, Irene comes out, Flax comes, and Flax is walking up, and he walked with a walking stick, right? His bodyguard, and he comes up, and he had a big white collar on, a big white collar like that, and he comes in, and he would come in to talk to us then while Irene was setting up the wages, and I said, "Well, what happened, you Flax?" "Oh," he says, "you." And I said, "What happened?" He says, "I was behind the goal when you saved that, and when you deflected the ball over, the ball hit me in the side of the net, and I had to go to hospital."
As a claim.
So Flax ended up getting injured from my penalty save, and then he was in on the Tuesday. But that's what happened, So there was a completely different era. It was a fantastic era. It was an enjoyable era.
I think it was good when we went as well, because you had to go up to Barrafield to train.
Absolutely.
You had to go in cars.
Aye.
And it's really got...
I've seen pictures of the Lisbon Lions jogging along the pavement.
We never jogged.
I did. I did, because what used to happen, I used to work hard. Mackie, we'd be waiting for the helicopter coming in with Mackie from London. Where is he today? Has he come? Oh, there he is now.
There he is.
But used to be so funny to play. We'd be all up in the warm-up, and Mackie wouldn't have arrived. And we're all laughing.
Captain Joe's the pilot with a few quid in his back.
Big Billy's going, right. And he's trying to hold us up until he would arrive in time. So anyway,
I didn't know the camaraderie in the dressing room. They were all picking numbers out a hat. See, but the minute I was coming in
from London and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we had one training pitch. Barrafield. We had an ash pitch beside it, and that was it. And the reserves and the first team trained on the pitch. But we used to work hard. Mackinnon didn't do much, so they could get a lift back down. But we had a run back down the road, so we came up maybe with a lift and that. So this particular day, there was a famous woman in Donegal, right, called Maya Rua. Now, for the Donegal people that's listening, you'll all know Maya Rua. She had green nail varnish, but she worked as a conductoress on the buses here, right, on the buses here when she was young. And she built up a great relationship with Big Billy, because she all let them on free when they were young kids. So that was her route from Glasgow Central out to London Road. So Maya became a big personality over in Donegal. Anyway, so I'm training this day. I'm covered in muck, gloves on. So I run down the road, and I come round the corner of Kerrydale Street, and here is McGinley's bus over in the car park. And I said, "Oh, that's the Donegal bus that comes over and back." I said, "What's going on?" But they were doing a bit of filming for a connection between Donegal and the Celtic supporters. And I'm walking. Now I start walking, and here I see Maya Rua coming off the bus, and she had a big white, green and white knitted iron sweater on, right? So she comes over, she's walking, then she starts running, then she's got the hands out like this. Packie! And she starts shouting me name, and I went, eventually I went, no, but before I could get my hands away, she had grabbed me like this here, and she cuddled me, and I was covered, and she walked away. She was all black, 2 big handprints right on her jersey here. She's going to do the film. And that was a brilliant story.
Oh, that's so good.
Aye, brilliant. Mary Rua.
Maya Rua.
I want to ask
She
you.
no longer what is the poor.
You told a lovely story. It was the Centenary team anniversary a couple of years ago. You're talking about Big Billy towards the end when he wasn't so well. I think a few of you went in to visit him.
Yeah, me, Andy and Joe.
Yeah.
And you were coming.
I was coming, but I was abroad. And they tell the story. The boys told me afterwards. And what we used to do is take him out for a wee cup of coffee and get him away from Liz for a bit. And
golf club,
and the golf club,
and
that was great for him. But he couldn't speak, and he was in his wheelchair, and he was probably coming to close to the end. But anyway, it was great to get him out of the house for Liz and give her a wee break. So anyway, the boys are chatting, telling the stories as we're telling now. Big Billy sitting there now. So he hadn't spoken all day, but he had been nodding his head and so on. So Andy Walker was telling me they were leaving anyway. Got up and. Andy says to Big Billy, he says, "Oh, Big Packie was supposed to be here today." But... And he looked up at Andy and says, "Big Packie, hopeless." And that kind of sums up our relationship.
Brilliant.
A bit of humour, but also, and we had that relationship because...
But you were almost an ever-present though in all his time.
And listen, Big Billy, and I my relationship with Billy, sort of, I don't know about you, Macca, but I grew the relationship with Big Billy because I was there for so long. But initially, obviously centre-halves, goalkeepers, they had this thing about whose fault is it and so on and so forth. So this was it. So that, and he used to frustrate me at times, Big Billy, be given out. You know what he was like? He'd chest out and he would be this and that. And it wasn't building you up, it was knocking you down. This is what done wrong and so on. And then as we got older, and then obviously when we retired, he lived out beside me in the marriage, we built up a great relationship with himself and his family and Liz and all of that type of stuff. So I got to know Billy, but it was that sort of love-hate relationship. But the respect we had for Big Billy was unbelievable.
Everyone had that. I mean, he loved me, but hated me on a Monday.
Oh no, that's it.
What the family used to say that at night time they knew if I was in on the Monday morning because he would bang a table. They'll sit down for dinner.
Yeah. The contracts at the end when you were trying to negotiate your contract with him, he'd be in the office, right? And the office had a big window, and the sun invariably would be coming in that window. And you would be there in the seat, and Big Billy would be there, and you couldn't right see him. And you're trying, and that was his way of intimidating you. And then you would start negotiating, and Big Billy would end up down behind the desk. He would slide down. You say, "Where?" And you'd be good up this and say, "Where?"
Oh, fantastic!
And that was his way of just uneasing you and getting into that. Just the Lisbon Lions, the Lisbon Lions for me was unique. We all. Yes. But I knew John, I knew Billy, Bobby. Obviously, I played what he played in my first game, my debut. Scored 2 goals. Jimmy would come around a couple of wee bit, but I didn't know the Tommy Gemmels and the Berties and the other guys. I didn't know them. I only got to know them after we retired because we started going to dinners with them. Of course. And they were brilliant. They were brilliant. But Bertie was an incredible, I have a great story about Bertie. I must tell the story if you don't mind.
Of course.
How are we doing time? Bert, we went out to New York to a dinner. And there was myself and Tommy was going, we brought our wives, Rosemary and Anne, out. But I was working in Ireland at the time there, so we went out through Aer Lingus into New York. Bertie was going, but he went out through London with British Airways. The gig was at night, so we arrived, we were settled in, went to the gig. Bert arrived. I did a few drinks. I had a few drinks on the plane. On the plane, I had a few drinks. It was well done. So I was grand. Next day then, another gig up to the Queen's pub in Queen's somewhere to watch the game. Celtic were playing, and all the fans are in. And they're watching the game and they're having their breakfast. And it was a unique scenario. I'm in watching them and that. And they're all eating their breakfast and then the game starts. They continue eating their breakfast until something happens in the game. Referee makes a bet. Say, "Oh, you haven't bastard." And they're all with their knives. And then they're back eating their dinner again. Or their lunch or their breakfast. And so Bert was there anyway. And then he goes on the brandy and he's gone again that day. And great fun. But top up. It's a top up. Then we've another day there. So now we're down into Manhattan, into one of the pubs down in Manhattan. And it was an afternoon sort of gig. So we arrived down around lunchtime and Bert and myself and Tommy and the guy says to Tommy, he says, Parlour Bar, I think it was. What are you having, Tommy? Have a wee drink. Tommy wasn't a big drinker, Tommy, a few drinks, but not. I'll have one of those Coronas. And I says, yeah, fine for me too. And Bert's like, Coronas? Give me one of them, son. Give me one of them, son. So we had 2 Coronas. I'll go back. And he was back in the brandy and the stuff. Gone again. And but we had a great afternoon. The following day we're leaving, but we're not leaving till afternoon. Down for breakfast, and we're having our breakfast. Then Bert arrives down. Oh, the night I had, son. What happened, you bit? Oh. And he goes through the whole, up all night and sickness and all, it goes through the whole boona. I'm sitting, and we're having our breakfast. And I says, what do you think caused that? Bert, tell you what, son, I know what caused that. See those limes on top of the Corona? It turned my stomach.
That's
Forget all the other
drinking for 3 days.
3 days.
15 brandies or whatever. That's so good.
That's better.
The limes, those limes. Don't touch them, son.
But that's what I loved about Celtic, walking in and all them walking about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they were all there, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
was
Billy,
a
your
family.
gaffer, Bobby was my coach,
Yeah.
you know, and it was just John's walking about, and then Lisbon Lions, wee Jimmy was, God rest him, he was walking about with Bertie, God rest him as well. But
It definitely was a family, and there was
Brilliant.
the other thing there also. There was a lot of older people who worked in the club on match day,
Yeah.
and you got to know them.
Sure.
Yeah.
You walked up to the landing, and the same guy was there, and you got to know them. These were all guys who probably worked for nothing.
Yeah.
But they loved the
never
club.
get paid.
They loved
Because
it.
I used to go and see what kind of mood the gaffer was in. I used to go into the office,
Aye.
see the girls, what kind of mood's in.
Yeah. No, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant time. Yeah.
So you get fantastic World Cup moments, right? The Romania penalty shootout, right? Which you probably have talked about a million times. Italia 90. And then meeting the Pope. We have to hear about that.
The one that's the one.
And also Saipan in 2002. You weren't playing at that point.
No, I was a
But if we go back to Italia 90 first, if your
Well,
recollection.
take a step back. We got to the European Championships, our first tournament ever against,
Yes. Of course.
and we beat England.
Of course.
Beat England the very first game. Ray Houghton scored and that. And I was probably, if I look back at all of my time in international, that was the game that I played out of my skin. Never. It was one of them days, Michael, where the ball hit your knee, hit your shoulder, hit your back, and so I never went into the net. Gary Lineker, of course, up front for them. But I was a good England. They didn't put Glenn Hoddle on until the second half, and that was a blessing. And we scored too early. It was it was boiling hot. But it was an incredible day. Imagine the very first game against your biggest rivals, and a competitive. And that was the first tournament we ever qualified, and to beat them.
Yeah.
That was the one. And a lot of the younger generation wouldn't remember that now. The older generation still remembers it. And then suddenly we end up qualifying for the World Cup. Big Roy helped us out that day, and Gary Mackay scored a goal against Bulgaria.
That's right. That was almost injury time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
We beat Scotland in Hampden.
That's right.
And when I look back at that game, that was, for us to win games away from home was never easy.
Yeah.
But to beat Scotland at Hampden, and Scotland had a good team. Paul played, Roy played, Gordon Strachan played, Pat Nevin played, Alan Hansen played. All of that group played. But our team, I keep saying this, but our team was incredible from where the players came from. I was a young goalkeeper, but I was 26. I only had 9 caps until Jack took over, really. And then Jack put me in the team. But I was in goals, I played with Celtic, played European football. And then if I go through that team, you had Paul McGrath, who was Man United. Paul played left back. Ronnie Whelan played right back with Liverpool. You had Kevin Bourne, Manchester United, in front of me. You had Mick McCarthy, who was at Man City. He then came up to us that next year. You ended up there in midfield. You had Ray Houghton, Liverpool, on the left. You had Liam Brady, who had just left Juventus. You had Mark Lawrence in Liverpool playing alongside him in the middle of the pitch. On the left-hand side, you had Tony Galvin, who was from Spurs, who was right-footed, but played in with his left foot all the time. It was incredible. And up front then you had Frank Staple, Manchester United, and John Aldrich, Liverpool. Wow. For the players that we had in the clubs, and they were all playing European
Regular
football.
football,
yeah.
And they were all playing. And then Dave Leary wasn't, he was at Arsenal and so on and so forth. So you had a group of them. So it was an incredible team to be in there. And we qualified, to beat, obviously, for the Euros, and then to follow on then for the World Cup. But we still needed the help of Roy and Mackay against Bulgaria.
But getting to the quarterfinals in 1990, that squad of players that you've just mentioned, that's probably not overachieving, is it?
No, and listen, Jack was, but we needed Jack. We needed a character. We needed somebody.
Yeah,
Johnny Giles. I made my
gaffer.
debut. I made my debut in '79. Or not my debut. I was in the squad with Johnny Giles in 1979 as a 19-year-old. And they had Liam Brady. They had Don Givens up front. They had Steve Highway in the wing. So they had great players, but they never got over the barrier of qualifying. And we needed somebody who had been there. And Jack was an incredible character, incredible man. And what he created was an environment for us to thrive in. Not just, like Jack used to say to us, I'm not here to show you how to pass the ball or control the ball. That's the club bloody work. But this is how we play. We didn't put the ball at risk. He was dead scared of the space behind Mick and Kevin. He says, the two of them can't bloody run. he says, you have to play out. I know you're a good shot stopper and all that, but you have to play out there. and we had this almost thing. And I remember we lost a goal. I don't know who it was against, but the ball's played over the top. We lost a goal, and I think it was maybe after the England game where Gary Lineker kept getting in, and then I would make the save. He said, "No, I want you out." And he said to me, he says, "We'll go out on the pitch and work on it." So he took all the lads and he put them on the halfway line with a ball each. And Armand goes, he says, and I pick up your position. So I would pick up, say, around about the penalty spot and that. No, I want you out. The arc.
Yeah.
Outside the arc. And now everybody had a free shot from the halfway line. He says, deliver fucking score. He says, deliver bloody score. So next thing, they're all taking the shot. And I'm running like an agent, running back, trying to catch balls. And there was a ball over the bar. Look, they can't score now. I said, hold on, Jack. I says, hold on. I says, give them another go. Now the lads have got their eye in. So next thing, there was about 10 balls ended up in the back of the net, and I'm diving trying to save them.
So he was basically wanting you to play further up the park.
Aye. Play in that space behind. Kevin, they can't run. So that was his only fear, and he said, "Don't put the ball at risk if you lose a goal in international football." But he was really an interesting character from that point of view tactically. People said that Jack was a simple game. Don't put the ball, play it long, get after it, and support. And that was absolutely. But he was clever. We played against, coming up to play against England, and Terry Butcher, who was playing with Rangers at the time. And nobody ever said to me, he says, and he would say to John Aldridge, he says, Terry Butcher's a good player. He's a good player. But he says he plays, knocks the ball, he's all left-footed, and he'll play with the outside of his left foot to put the ball into a position to then go and clip it. He says, as soon as he lifts up that leg to touch it, you run at him. Stay away from him, then run at him. And we'll see how good a player he is.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Simple wee information. Yeah. And then, what was the lad from Forest that played alongside Terry Butcher
for England?
At the time. And he says, he's a good player. He's a good player when you commit to the ball and he turns away and he'll play. He says, and he's very quick. And he says to John, he says, here's what I want you to do. He says, when that ball's played over his shoulder and he's running back to get it, you run with him and then slow down. Don't commit, because he's got a wee turn of pace and you're out of the game and he's now looking. He says, let him get the ball and then close him. So you run with him and then slow down and then close him down again, and we'll see how good a player he is. You know what I mean?
But Des Walker.
Well done. And almost simple wee things like that there. Playing the ball away from goal instead of playing into feet, dragging people out in the centre forward, then Niall Quinn, who's a big guy, you get to the back post and we'll create space for the midfielders to run in. So tactically, all these simple things to allow us. We still had the press, we still worked hard, Ray Houghton and all these guys were energetic. So he gave us a way of playing. And he used to say to us, he says, simple. If I tell you something, and I tell you something, and I tell you something, and I tell all of you 30 things, there's a great chance that you're not thinking the same. But if I tell you all 3 things, it's logic. Of course. But he was his character, we would meet up, but he would take it, before we played in the World Cup quarter-final, Jack and Mick Byrne, who was our physio, was outside, and Jack was having a cigarette. And next thing, this lorry comes in. You see the lorry coming up the driveway, and Jack says to Mick, he says, what's this lorry? He says, oh, that's the Guinness for the night after. And he said, oh, bloody night after. We get the boys down now. So this was 2 or 3 days before the game, you know. He says, I will get them all, get a pint. And he was brilliant at that. And Mick would come around, right, Jack wants you down, now we come down. Right. Next thing, we end up playing. At that time, there was you didn't in the room playing this game and all that. We had games.
Cards.
You remember the one with the penny in the head?
I know, I
the
heard
penny
that.
in the head where you slap your head and count to see how many times you stick the penny here.
You get a coin.
No, we won't tell you.
We
won't tell you how it's done, but you're to see how many times to knock the penny off.
So you've just got me a clue as to how you cheat.
So that was one. The other one was the spoons one.
The spoons.
Well, that's a great game where you have to play against you, me, and you.
Vengeance.
No, don't give it away. Don't give it away.
This is great.
And that was the game. And then the other one was the one where you have to close your eyes and count how many times before your hand would touch somebody holding their hands, and then you have to close your eyes. And you have to do that there. There were the 3 games, and there's a story behind each game, and that was brilliant. So we spent about 2 hours that evening with a pint. Again, there's nothing drastic, and that's how Jack kind of always managed us. We trained hard, we worked hard. He created. We went to Rapallo, right? Rapallo was where we played Romania in the penalty shootout. And remember Rapallo? That's where Scotland was.
The games in Genoa.
The games in Genoa.
But you were saying based out there.
Based out in Rapallo. And we replaced Scotland in the same hotel. Now, we were down in a shit hotel down in down in Sicily. Oh, my God. And this was 5-star, and we came up here, and but we replaced, and you remember Mo, and I don't know who else got into a wee bit of trouble. Were you in the squad that day?
No, probably not.
1990.
1990.
That's a very good question. Why were you not in the squad?
Who was the manager?
It was Andy.
Andy Roxburgh. That'll be the answer.
But anyway, and remember, they went downtown and they got into a wee bit of trouble. He was around the bar.
Yes.
We went in and replaced Scotland. Now we're in the quarterfinal. Scotland's home. Big Roy and Paul, they've all gone home. So we're replacing them in Rapallo in the same hotel. And Jack said, "Right, go down to town and have a couple, and we'll get working tomorrow." So we go down to town where Mo and them got into trouble, and we're having a few pints, and all the media's in with us. And that was a difference. That was a difference.
Behaving yourselves.
We were having a crack and stories and all that, but we were relaxed. And that's how Jack dealt with us, you know. But he was wonderful. I had them over here at my testimony. You've heard this story about the test. I took them over and I was asking all the players about what would you like? It wasn't about Crystal and that. And they were, we just get this and this. Jack, I said, what would you like? He said, give me a box of scotch. So I had a box of scotch. But at that time, Macca, it was the CD player was just out. Yes. Oh, this is a new phenomenon of CD players. And they get a portable CD player. Wow, that was brilliant. So I got the portable. I managed to get them, and I put everybody's name on the CD player, right? So we went back to the Albion Hotel after the game, and obviously the speeches. And so it came to the time of giving out the gifts, and I says, okay, Jack, bring the team up. I've got a gift for you. And he walked up right away. Loved gifts. He loved gifts, Jack. And he's for free, he loved it. And he walked up, and the players then started to come. But he walked up first, and I had the CD player at the top of the box with this. And I said to him, here you are, Jack. And he went, he stopped about 2 yards away, and he says, what the fuck is that? And I says, it's your gift, Jack. What am I going to do with a toaster?
Oh, brilliant.
A toaster.
Brilliant,
I said, it's not a toaster, it's CD. It's a bloody toaster. So then he takes that. I had the box of scotch for him anyway. Then he goes back down, and they're at the table, and the boys are saying to him, Jack, that cost you 15 quid for every CD. He says, who wants to buy it off me?
Oh, brilliant.
You've got to tell the story about the Pope.
I see, you can make things up.
No, but we had a wonderful time. So anyway, we go to play Italy after beating Romania in the penalty shootout. We go to Italy. We're way out in this hotel. But before we went to the tournament, the physio Mick Byrne, who was a big Catholic and big Fianna Fáil man and all that, and he's on, Jack, if we get to Rome, you'll take us to see the Pope. Oh, certainly I'll take us to see the Pope. Now, Jack thinking, we'll never get to the final. Never get to the final. But we get to the quarterfinals in Rome.
Right.
So as soon as we qualified, Mick's like, Jack, you promised. So anyway, they end up going and getting all the cardinals of Ireland and everybody that was working out in Rome. And we end up getting this personal invitation to go audience with the Pope. So we go there anyway with the Pope, and it's fantastic. And he's John Paul, and he's doing his speech and all that. And then we're brought up onto the stage. Yeah. We're up beside him. So he comes to meet us and meets Jack and meets wee Charlie O'Leary, our wee kit man, and all the players around. Then he comes to me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Oh," and I was introduced to him as the goalkeeper. And he said, "Oh, the portier." He says, "I was the portier in Poland when I was young." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well done," and so on, in a few words. And then the cameras all took the pictures of me, and we have it in the house. My mum had it over in the house and it was on RTE TV and so on. It was on the news that night, and it was all over the place.
Packie the Pope.
Packie the Pope, and this was like unbelievable. So anyway, we go to play Italy then in the quarterfinal in Rome, and remember the goal. Yeah.
It was a rebound, wasn't it? You parried the shot.
The ball breaks at the edge of their box, and they do a counter attack. Donadoni picks up about 30, 40 yards, straight forward and hits this shot. Now, it was a brilliant shot.
It was a stinger.
It was an unbelievable shot.
Well just to keep it.
So I'm in line of the shot, and then I'm moving into the line of it, and I go this way here, and the ball moves back inside me. And the only thing, and I'm telling you now, this is the only thing I could do. Instead of popping it out there, I want to knock it in the way that I'm falling out into that area. But Scalacci, who was hot at the time, unbelievable.
Right.
Just we lost Toto Scalacci there recently, actually, he did.
Yeah.
But he made a diagonal run across, and Paul McGrath had tracked him. And as I've taken the ball with me, I lose my balance out to the post. The ball drops to Scalacci, back of the net, first touch, good finish, but an easy finish.
Yeah.
Beaten 1-0.
No disgrace?
No disgrace. But we beat, this is the quarterfinals. So anyway, in the dressing room afterwards, and we're sitting around and this and that, and as you do, and we're out of the tournament, and I'm there with my strip on and talking, and we're all disappointed, and Jack's standing over at the dressing room, or the shower room door, talking to Andy Townsend, who was our captain. Yeah. And this is Andy's story. Yeah. And Jack's having a cigarette in the dressing room, which is brilliant. He said, "Oh, I'll be back now fishing next week," and all this, you know. So I eventually strip off, and I go in for a shower, and I have to go past the two of them. And as I'm going past him, and he's out of the corner of his mind, he says, "The effing Pope would have saved that one." Brilliant! Destroyed me. Thanks, Jack.
Brilliant. Oh,
so that was it. But he was that was his way of just. But it was brilliant, you know. And we had a great homecoming then. You know, there was 500,000 people in Dublin for us coming home after that, because it had just captured the imagination of the whole country. What we did, we didn't win anything, but we got to a stage where the fans never thought we'd get there. It set the bar very high for the ones that come behind. We nearly did it again in actually under Mick when we went to Japan and Korea.
Well, that was In fact, I was hoping to talk about that. Yeah, we've got a bit of time. Why not? Because I mean that was. I forgot how well Ireland actually did in that. Yeah. So it was a penalty shootout against Spain.
And if they had won that game, we were true. Mm-hmm. We were true to the quarterfinals again.
And that's despite all the stuff that went on beforehand. And everyone knows the story about Roy Keane. Obviously, the Roy Keane McCarthy fallout was huge.
Yeah, well, I was a staff member, you know, and I was very supportive of Mick, and you have to be as a manager. And Roy, listen. It was a difficult time. I always felt, and you know, Roy will never probably say what was going on, but I always felt that there was something going on with Roy before that. Mm-hmm. He was on edge, and so on and so forth. You know, for him not to get to a World Cup for what a fantastic player he was unbelievable, you know, and that, you know, I could go into the detail of it a bit more, but I'm not going to really get there because at the end of the day, Roy is Roy, and I've got great. I got on great with Roy when he was young, and we used to wind him up about you know myself and Jerry Payton, and I have a decent relationship. I didn't like what happened. Absolutely, I totally supported Mick on it because Mick was the captain, and if you're a part of a team, you're part of a team. You can't be. And it's just a real pity that he didn't get the opportunity to go and light up the World Cup. Yes, you know, and maybe people say, "Oh, well, if we had Roy, we'd won the World Cup." We wouldn't have won the World Cup, but we might have did
Going
what
a
we
wee
did
bit further,
a wee
right.
bit further. You don't know. It could have been a disaster. So you never know these things. And that the one thing I'll say is that I've got great admiration for Mick.
Yes.
And remember when they met afterwards? I think he was manager of Wolves and one was manager of Sunderland. You know, the story there would be that Mick was phoned up Sunderland. I think Roy was at Sunderland, asked for a player. And who did he speak to? Was Roy. You know, this was because he said, that's who you speak to. If you're going to go after a player, them times you go and speak to the manager. And that's what happened. And that's why remember they had the handshake. So Roy instigated that at that time. So I have a lot of admiration for him to do that, because that was a tough time for those guys, I can tell you, in the limelight. And
He's almost kind of reinvented himself a wee bit, Roy Keane, now, as this kind of media personality.
I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of some of his remarks. That's his job.
But you see, but that's it.
That's a favourite one. It's what a great save. That's his job.
But it's so true.
But that's his job also to create
superb.
That event. And he is. Listen, he is good at it.
It's so easy. It just comes out.
And that, but listen, management is not easy. No. I can tell you. You know, I was there as assistant manager with Tommy, and it's not easy. I got 3 or 4 games when Tommy was ill one time to manage, and I can tell you, when you're up in front of the players and you have to deal with them all, and they're all different characters, it is not easy. Roy had the opportunity, didn't quite work out as well as he probably would want to. Mick has done it well over the years. So and that's not easy.
As long as everybody's friends now, that's the most important thing.
You still speak to Mick?
Yeah.
I need to tell him I'm going to phone him.
He's got
to come on.
They're all good guys, and we all get on well together.
Brilliant.
Still.
Well, the time has absolutely flown by. Thanks. If you're still watching, brilliant. It's been absolutely tremendous, hasn't it?
I knew it would be some of the stories we've got.
We sit here for a couple of hours.
Well, we could, you know, we'll maybe have some of our popular best guests back on again in a few months' time.
Definitely.
Packie will absolutely be in that category.
We had a couple of weeks ago we were out and just the stories were flowing.
Yeah,
stories were flowing. Great,
absolutely brilliant. Well, we'll wind it up there then. Thanks for watching. Remember, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you again for another episode of Let Me Be Frank. Packie Bonner, thanks a million for joining us.